Danno O'Shea, and this is the Industry 45 show brought to you by Krown Rust Control, 4790 Montrose Road, Niagara Falls, Ontario, 371-2094. Lucky I can see that far because I can't see anything in front of me, hence why I have these specs.
Me too.
We continue to talk about the music business. Let's talk about publishing.
Love to.
So a lot of people made a lot of mistakes selling their publishing and now are not making any money. So what is your take on publishing? And if I'm an artist, how important is it for me to retain 100% of my publishing?
Well, imagine this. Publishing is a tricky thing to explain to people who aren't familiar with it. But publishing is basically a royalty. When a music is played, a royalty is paid out to the writers of that song and to the publishers. And the publisher usually is mostly the writers, but it's also given a little bit to the record label as a means for them to push it as well, so they get a taste to wet their beak, as they say in The Godfather. And if somebody wants your publishing, they need to really give you something for it, because your publishing, I always call it, is your mailbox money. That's like yesterday was SoCan Day.
You brought that up when I saw you a month ago or so. You were so excited SoCan Day was coming.
So SoCan Day is coming. SoCan Day comes 4 days a year.
Yeah.
Where you get, checks in the mail, which is lovely for your writing and your for your publishing. So, I look forward to those checks, because what ends up happening with music is like, even, I don't know why I'm saying these guys, but if you use the Eagles, they wrote a song in 1970 something, and to this day, they'll get the mailbox money from it. So publishing is one of those things that a lot of people didn't really understand, and they signed it away maybe for $5,000, which back in the day was a lot of loot. But John Fogerty, I think, is one of the great examples where he sold his publishing, I think, and he had to buy it back like 30 years later for like just $1 bazillion. So I'm always saying that if somebody wants to buy some of your publishing, they really need to prove what they're going to do.
Come to the table, right?
Come to the table, because that's your leverage,
right?
And that's scary stuff. We've had a lot of people come to us with and some people sign publishing deals where they're just writers, and that's a little bit different. But as a band, just be wary, and it can be a great move for you, but it can be really scary. Like somebody has a piece of. Just think of that thing that they maybe created in the jam space. Somebody has a piece of that now.
Right.
What are they going to do with that?
You bring up jam space, which brings me to a conversation that you had at Mai Tai Cafe when you were doing this music business seminar. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about a band being in a room collectively writing a song, and how everybody better document their input to this song, because how many people 6 months after the bass player has quit or left or been kicked out, and the bass player says, well, I was part of writing that song, and somebody says, no, you weren't.
Yeah.
So how important is that today to make sure that you have that in ink, maybe?
I always say that it's much easier to divide up a theoretical pie. When money starts coming in, our memories start to change.
Absolutely.
And that's an issue, right? So usually I always say it does kill the vibe a little bit after you've written a song, and it's an exciting feeling. Like anyone who has written a song and you feel it's good, it's a great feeling, and there's nothing worse than after
sign here, please.
Yeah, exactly. It's like who owns what. But I think it's best to do it then, to say, because everyone's usually on the same page then, and everyone signs off, and then it's done. Whereas, memories start to change, or people feel like they're entitled to something else. It's scary stuff, and I have seen lots of bands break up over that sort of deal.
Something else I want to talk to you about is staying relevant today in music. Mm-hmm. Because you mentioned you can watch or listen to your music anywhere, mm-hmm. and you need to stand out, and then you need to stay relevant over time as well. So how do bands become relevant or stay relevant? Any idea? I mean, Hurricane has been relevant, and that's why I guess I'm asking the question, because everybody, that just doesn't go away.
Yeah, I know.
Damn you.
How can you miss us if we never go away? It's tough, right? Because I think everyone has different goals. One of the things that Hurricane set out to do was to perform a lot. we realized that our strength was in performance. So
because it's very dynamic.
It's very dynamic.
It's very engaging to the people.
And up until this record, Ride the Bullet, that is basically out April 12th, and the single we were listening to earlier, there was no, we never felt that we captured it. So, but other people are just strong writers. And so they, want to spend that time writing. Everyone's idea of relevance is different. In the old days, it was always a cycle. Album, tour, writing, or album, tour, media, then writing. It comes again. You hear the new Sam Roberts every 5 years,
right?
Because that's
the cycle.
That's the cycle. For us, we just really, one of the reasons we wanted our own label was that we didn't really just want to tour once every 3 years. We wanted to tour significantly and break into the markets that we felt we deserved or should get into. So relevance is, I think, though, is easier than ever because you can push out content in a different way.
All the time, right.
Yeah.
I see your videos, right? You and Jacob do these YouTube or I see them on Facebook, yes. but videos talking about your songs, talking about your tour, talking about being backstage, whatever it is, but you're keeping in people's face.
Yeah, and we produce some content that isn't even hurricane centric. Like we'll do like skits and stuff like that because we have a love of comedy as well, and we release kind of a tour documentary. And so we're always kind of thinking every few months we start talking about, okay, we know there's going to be a lull in the wintertime. We always take the winter off because touring.
Who the hell wants to tour in the winter?
It's what I always say to bands. It's an amazing idea if you do it. Because like people will show up because there's nothing happening, but it's the worst. Like hooking up a trailer in the winter. Like I'm too old for it. When I was 18, you could convince me. Now,
forget it.
There's no. I want to be watching Law and Order, man. No way.
It's funny, if I read Metal, well, not all of it, but Metal on Ice by Sean Kelly, and he's on the Industry 45 show. Sean plays guitar with Lee Aaron, but
cool.
His book is great because he talks about touring in Canada from coast to coast and about all the days in a van and the heating goes and you're in buck squat like, Alberta and,
It's all happened to me. I remember being in Newfoundland and it was Newfoundland and it was, in March. So we had what I call fool's spring, where you think it's spring for a week and then the winter comes again. And we were driving to the ferry to go to Halifax. And I remember we hit a moose and it broke our windshield and we didn't know if we'd get on the ferry, and we pulled up and the two guys said, "Oh, you hit a moose, did you?" And we just pulled on. It was like nothing to them. It was traumatic for me. So yeah, it's touring Canada is not for the faint of heart.
So speaking of touring Canada and you, the documentary Eye of the Storm.
Yes, sir.
So talk a little bit about that because that was made not last tour, the tour before.
Yeah, this was the tour before. This was the tour as things were starting to change. We had released a song called Smile in 2016, and things started to kind of change very quickly. And radio was playing it a little bit, and people were showing up at the shows like in much larger numbers than we had anticipated. And so we shot this, I think, in the summer of 2017 before we had the big tour vans and all this stuff. And it was really neat. We just brought a camera along with us, and we were kind of documenting how things were starting to change as we were playing bigger festivals. And it's neat for us to look back on it because we have seen things change a lot since then. And it's fun too because it's great to see the personalities in our group, because I think that several of us get a lot of the press, whereas some of the other guys you don't get a chance to really meet them. And I thought it was really, really great that you get to see some of the big personalities, because it's a crew of hilarious guys and seriously ranging in age from 18 to like 40. So there's a large, I could be Kaylin's dad, and but it's really fun and neat. And I'm glad our lighting guy Mike put this together. He has some editing abilities because I certainly do not.
Did you watch some of it though and think, really, I did that, or I said that, or
Oh well, yeah. I mean, luckily I was.
There's got to be some of those moments.
I was there for the editing process where I'm like, I can't stay in. But it was great, and it was great to relive some of those moments because you forget. Oh, that's what Halifax was like. That's what BC's like. That's what and we're all through the States now too. So our next one, it's been really neat for us to play sold out shows in like DC and like in West Virginia and
Right, because you're all over now. You're not just in Canada.
No.
Yeah.
And so it's and we signed with an American agent as well, so we're with Atomic Music Group in the United States. So I don't have to do the agent work in the States, which is lovely. So I can just focus on Canada, what I know best. And so it's really changed. And, we're in these bigger vehicles and big trailers and lighting rigs. And it's all it's kind of like everything you dream of, but it's also, as the person kind of at the top of the pyramid, I can tell you it's a giant pain in the butt mostly, but it does look cool.
So something that just popped into my mind is when you said about the U.S., from a business perspective, is there a major difference touring in Canada and in the U.S.
Yes.
for a Canadian band?
Yeah, certainly. So American bands who want to come into Canada, it's as simple as saying, hi, we're an American band. We're playing here tonight. For a Canadian band, there's a visa process, which is tricky and expensive. And there's also, you need to become commercial vehicles and stuff like that. But the real main thing that I'm always telling bands that they don't realize is that if you do this legit, and we do everything legit, which is gross.
What the hell's wrong with you?
I don't know. There is
this
something
is the music
wrong with
business.
me. I know. And they actually, in the United States, they withhold 30% of Canadians' earnings. So we have to file American taxes. I guess Canadian musicians were going over and not paying their taxes.
Really?
Who knew?
Yeah.
So anyway, so now to combat that, they withhold 30% of our taxes, of our earnings. And, 30% is like, when you have 10 people, you need that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's it's not the greatest scenario, but we also realized that we didn't just want to be Canada famous. Not that we even are Canada famous, but I mean, we wanted to tour more broadly. And we realized that one of the beauties in the States, like it's
American money. That's what's beautiful about the States.
It's American money, and everything is so close. You can hit
Cleveland,
10
Pittsburgh,
major markets in no time. And what's great is we'll stop and we, on the last tour, I asked the guys, we were driving through New York, so you guys want to go to Coney Island for the afternoon? And just that kind of thing, a lot of the guys have never got a chance to tour like that. I've been very fortunate to tour the States for, a long time.